Hey, we're live, Eric. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UFC 261 post-show, as this has been one of the most interesting nights in the history of mixed martial arts. And to help me break down such wild events of mixed martial arts and a historic night for the UFC is post-wrestling's Eric Marcotte. Eric, as always, you are Mr. Reliable to come on in and help out. But I wouldn't want to break it down with anyone else. Eric, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm good, sometimes these lengthy UFC cards, they can get to you, but tonight was the exact opposite. I feel full of energy.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw a stat that this was like the shortest main card pay-per-view in the history of the UFC.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
And for a card where you thought with three title fights that we'd be here for forever. But you know what? Luckily, we got some epic title fights. We had two unfortunate injuries on this card, but nonetheless, like Eric, we had fans back. Like that was the big story going into this one, and well, honestly, as much as controversy as there was, we missed the fans because they added so much energy to this show.
Yeah, I mean, from the first preliminary fight onwards, you could really feel the energy from the crowd throughout the show, and they never died down. They were into everything.
The first prelim, the first punch was a knockdown, and that kind of set the tone.
Yeah, very much so.
for what a night we were going to have. So yeah, just what a night. And I mean, obviously, I think you feel the same way. But what are your observations as a whole before we break down this card of UFC 261?
So yeah, I mean, you already touched on the big things, of course, the finishes and the fans. But starting with the fans, it was like you said, they added so much energy to the event tonight. And there were some bad things that came along with that too. You know, the returns of the booing when the grappling starts, and certain fighters of certain nationalities coming booed because they weren't American, stuff like that. That sort of leaves a sour taste. But at the same time, there was so much positive that came around with it too.
Yeah, definitely. This was a show where if you were not from the good old Stars and Bars, US of A, you were getting booed. The crowd was going to be on you. We heard a lot of F Jake Paul chants as Jake Paul was in the VyStar Memorial Arena in Jacksonville. Got into it with Daniel Cormier, too. So, I mean, that was also – we almost saw an extra fight added to the card. But Dana's definitely – if that's happening, he's making sure he's getting some cut.
Oh, yeah. You got to sell that one first, right?
Yeah. So, all in all, like, the fans were being back were good. But as you said, there was the cons, especially the booing of nationalities. The ground game, it was like we'd gone back 15 years, Eric, where if the fight went to the ground, it was boo. We don't want to see this. We want our knockouts.
Yeah, no time was given. You took someone down. You were an enemy of the state of Florida.
Yeah, definitely a lot of enemies of the state of Florida, especially like that Pat Sabatini fight where I thought it was going to be a much more stand-up fight, turned into a grappling match, and boos galore for everyone involved. But nonetheless, let's take a look at it as we pretty much just wrapped up this card. And, we had three title fights. One here was a rematch, the main event, Kamaru Usman defending the welterweight title against Jorge Masvidal. And there was some animosity, but all in all, like, I still felt Usman was going to win. And Usman, you can see since going to Denver and joining up with Trevor Whitman, he's become a totally different mixed martial artist. We knew his wrestling was good, but he's finally got the boxing going. And like he tagged Masvidal a couple times in the first fight and early in the first round. But once that second round where he clipped Masvidal and Masvidal put a big smile on his face, like you could almost see the writing on the wall that this fight was over. Like just a matter of moments later, a big right hand drops Jorge Masvidal, and Jorge Masvidal is finished for the first time in MMA since Bellator Season 1, which was, I believe, 2009, and his first finish via strikes since he fought in Sengoku back in 2008. So that just shows you how durable of a fighter Jorge Masvidal was from Strikeforce to this UFC run that he's been on. But all in all, like this is maybe the performance that Usman really needs to get the chatter of, greatest welterweight of all time. I still think he's got a couple more wins and needs a couple more years of dominance, but this can really snowball that chatter right now.
Yeah, I very much echo your thoughts on all of that. I mean, Usman's run was already fantastic, but these last few fights, 3 of his last 4 fights have ended in finishes now, right? He finishes Colby Covington. He has the short notice decision against Masvidal. He finishes Gilbert Burns in a hell of a fight, and then he finishes Masvidal in brutal fashion here. This is like one of those highlights that you're going to see on the Usman highlight packages for the rest of time.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because that knockout was unbelievable and so unexpected. Like you knew that he was letting his hands go and had some good combinations, but I don't think anyone really expected it to come like that and finish Masvidal. Like I think most people thought this would be a finish, or if there was a finish, it may be a submission, but I had it going the distance, honestly, as the first one did. But like I said, Usman is just taking his career to another level with Trevor Whitman. Trevor Whitman in one night has become like the coach of the year in mixed martial arts, as we'll talk about with the co-main event. But I just can't believe the evolution of Kamaru Usman. Like this win puts to bed all the Usman doesn't have hands talk.
I thought the Burns fight put that to bed, but this one, never bring it up again, Yeah. I mean, and as you touched on earlier, Masvidal's durability throughout his career has been phenomenal. Like, we've seen him get dropped, but he's never went unconscious like that. And yeah, this was just a wild night.
Very much a wild night from, the energy of the crowd I think was big, and you could really tell how much we missed it, and it played into all the fights on this main card and as well as the prelims. And now, Eric, we're set up with Usman Covington 2, because Dana said Colby Covington's the #1 contender. He was there in the front row. They even interviewed him after the post-fight speeches from Masvidal and Usman, which is kind of a new feature I guess they're trying out on these pay-per-views, which I don't know. How'd you feel about that?
I didn't listen to Covington's interview, unfortunately. I was a bit busy with other things at the moment. But it's very interesting. They made it pretty clear what direction they were going in, so I'm not totally surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like on last week's fight night, they did something similar where they interviewed right after the conclusion of the main event, they interviewed Marvin Vettori in the back, right? So perhaps this is something that the UFC are experimenting with now?
I didn't see the Vettori interview. If they
I could be wrong.
But maybe. I know they brought Robert Whittaker up for another post-fight interview for their post-show. But I think it's interesting. It's kind of like taking the tabs from pro wrestling, just setting it up months in advance with who are now our clear-cut guys, which I guess now means the UFC has to have clear-cut people set for each division after the said main event is done. And I think the UFC played this one well, because Colby Covington's a guy that has created himself a character, and he has kind of these feuds with whoever won this fight. It was going to be Masvidal, that's an ex-teammate. If it's Usman, it's a guy that he feels he was wronged and the fight was stopped early and what have you. So I think the UFC picked it right. But yeah, now it's Covington. And I don't know, like Covington's a great fighter, and he's such a different game. He's the only guy to really test Usman in this championship run. But
I will say, I think Burns gave Usman a run too, especially in that first round. But I see what you're saying. Over the course of a 25-minute fight, yeah, I get it.
Because I still feel like, as much as the judges' cage side for the first Covington-Usman fight thought it was like a pretty clear-cut way for Usman, I thought it was like 2-2 going into the final round, and a lot of people I did see as well have that feeling. But I just think it's gonna be another interesting fight. But I just don't know if anyone's touching Usman right now. He just feels like a class above everyone else at 170.
I agree with you completely. Personally, I thought that Stephen Thompson was probably the most interesting stylistic matchup yet, or left, I should say. But he's injured, and that's not the direction they're going in. And I guess they're not going with Leon Edwards yet either, as he fights Nate Diaz next month. Yeah.
Well, I mean, welterweight's getting interesting, right? Because we saw Nate. We know Nate is fighting Leon Edwards, as you said, but it was also saw Nick Diaz. And if you've seen the pictures circulating out there on social media, like Diaz seems like he's potentially ready to come back. I don't know if he will. I mean, he's had such a long layoff, and if Usman wants to add another name, like there's a name that St. Pierre had. but it would do well on pay-per-view too.
It would do well, but I think that would be an irresponsible fight to make. I think if Nick Diaz was coming back, he should be fighting like the Carlos Condits and Robbie Lawlers of the world right now, not the Usmans.
Which I mean, I understand, and I would be down with those fights as well. But I mean, UFC's always in the business of making money. But I don't know. Right. It's going to be a fun rematch because Covington pushed Usman the ways we haven't really seen people push him. I mean, you think Burns did, and Burns did have his moments in that fight. Don't get me wrong, back in February, but I think this is going to be I just don't know what Covington's going to be the one that has to now work on his striking because Usman's wrestling's really always been the foundation, and now his hands are good. Like I don't know, how do you see the potential rematch when they make it going to play out? Like I'm still picking Usman right now, but it's obviously just moments after a title victory like that.
In their first fight, it felt like one of the only times we've really seen Usman strike for that long. And I thought he held his own, even had the advantage against Covington on the feet. He clearly had more power in his hands, and that ultimately resulted in the finish. I remember I think I had him up 3-1 going into that final round. So I thought it was a bit more decisive in his favor. But now that his hands have improved significantly, I don't know if it's going to be that close when they rematch, but hey, I have been wrong many, many, many times.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting too, is like, because now Covington the wrestling will cancel out a little bit, I would think. And I just think Covington's got to really work on his hands now. And this is a guy that's not known for finishing fights via strikes. If he's going to finish, he's going to ground and pound you out or, submit you. So I don't know, but you know what? We're in for another couple months of interesting trash talk between two guys that genuinely don't like each other. So we're going to have to prepare ourselves for maybe some really cringeworthy stuff as well.
I'm always ready when it comes to Colby Covington.
And I guess, the last bit on Usman, I said, like, this is the win that really solidifies the snowball rolling for, being the greatest welterweight of all time. I've already seen people, respected MMA journalists, saying Usman, greatest welterweight of all time. But when you have as many title defenses as GSP had, I still think there's a ways to go. But if you're finishing people like Masvidal, you finish Gilbert Burns, who was, skyrocketing up the ranks at welterweight, and you take on the Masvidal on short notice, which is always a tricky fight too. And finishing Covington, he's getting there, and he's starting to clean out a division that George St. Pierre once did 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, and that's not even counting names like RDA and Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley. He's just on a phenomenal run right now. I'm with you. I don't think I think it's a bit early to just say he's the greatest welterweight of all time, but I don't think it's early to be saying he's one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's 14-0 in the UFC, and his resume speaks for itself.
I think that's a fair point because the resume alone right now, the athletes that are in the UFC are, I don't want to diminish anyone from the past, during that boom, but they're at a different level right now. As you see, just look at the fights and how tough they are for finishes. Finishes are so much more unexpected than they were back in the 2005s, 2006s, and things of that nature. But as you say, he's undefeated. He has never in the UFC. He has one loss back in his second pro fight. So this is a guy that's carving out a legacy, and you can see it, right? You can see his mindset right now is I have to break George St. Pierre's records by one at least before I get out of here.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not far away from the longest win streak in UFC history now. I mean, the longest official one, right, is Anderson Silva at 16 before he lost to Weidman, and unofficially John Jones as 17 wins and then the one DQ loss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think as well, I don't know how much really bearing this place, but Usman's clearly maybe the best tough alumnus now of all time.
Yeah, maybe.
That's one thing I think that he's got going for him. I mean, you want to put it at the bottom of his resume, sure.
It's at the bottom, but it's there.
It's there, yeah. But he's putting that Hall of Fame career together, and I think we're all waiting to see how it plays out. Another win over Covington. George St. Pierre, he was able to, avenge 2 losses. Sure, Usman hasn't had a loss in the UFC, but you win 2 rematches, pretty decisively. Then it opens up the real book for me of, as you said before, Stephen Thompson, Rafael Dos Anjos is a guy that just perfect for 170. So there's a lot of interesting fights to make, and now it's time for guys to to get hungry and forget their manners to earn that opportunity against Usman for the years to come.
Yep. In my opinion, he's probably at the top of the pound for pound list right now. I know that's a very subjective thing, but
he's the fighter. He's the fighter of the year right now.
Phenomenal run he's on. There's nothing more you could say about it.
Exactly. Like even if he doesn't fight at the end of this year, which now as we talked about the coming fights happening, he's gonna be like the fighter of the year. Like he's put a resume on that's really hard to top for 2021. So someone's gonna have to come and do something really impressive to break that. But right now, Kamaru Usman, your fighter of the year, as we enter May in 2021. So
yeah, a lot of time for things to change, but
exactly
for now.
But yeah, just an impressive win for Kamaru Usman. Moving down the card, I think this was the People's main event for the UFC strawweight title. Wei Li Zhang, or Zhang Wei Li, however you pronounce it, defended her title against Rose Namajunas, the former champion. And this fight, we knew could be, super competitive. I had this one for sure going the distance. I was like, there's no way, they're going to have a kind of a Joanna type fight that Zhang had back in March of last year. No, we just got some plotting out. And then Rose hits this head kick out of nowhere that no one was expecting, drops Zhang. Like she's out as she's falling and gets, I think, woken up as her head hits the canvas. I have to double check on replay, but I think that's what happened. And a couple of ground and pound shots, and that's it. As Rose Namajunas regains the strawweight title, becomes the first woman to ever regain a title in the UFC since women have fought in this weight class. And first of all, what a performance! She stops Zhang's 21 fight undefeated streak. This is a huge win for Rose. And now I'm interested in this Thug Rose 2.0 era at strawweight because she really didn't seem like she liked the pressures that come with being a champion before. And now she seems like she's matured a little bit. And I think that's going to be the story of this title run for Rose, is handling the media and the responsibilities of being champion as along with defending your belt.
Yeah, I mean, much like yourself, I didn't see the fight going the way it did. I actually predicted Zhang to win by a late stoppage because in Namajunas' last fight against Jessica Andrade, she looked phenomenal early, and as the fight wore on, Jessica Andrade began to take over. And I remember watching that fight, and I said to myself, man, if this was a 5-rounder, Andrade probably would have finished her in the next round. So I went into this fight with that in my mind, as well as Zhang's impressive durability against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, of course, in the fight of all time last year. And I thought Zhang would be able to withstand Rose's early round offense and take over late. It didn't get there.
No.
Rose Namajunas' power is something to behold at 115, and that head kick was perfect.
Picture perfect.
That replay. Picture perfect.
I have to run back some of the great head kick knockouts in mixed martial arts. Crow Cop comes to mind. Cowboy Cerrone's got a few, but that may be one of the best, cleanest, nicest head kick knockouts I've seen since I've laid my eyes on mixed martial arts. That was so picture perfect, right on the button. A video game couldn't even be that clean of a knockout. Unbelievable knockout. And, Zhang was a little upset. And we also had this thing where we're interviewing the fighters where they're kind of concussed. I thought we cut that out.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I mean, she was already in it. She just got knocked out. She had no idea what happened. The crowd was booing her from the moment she walked out. She should have never been interviewed there.
No, not at all. But the story here is all Rose Namajunas because she now wins. She wins in spectacular fashion. The crowd erupts as it rightfully should. And she's now got to be the champion again. And I think, like I said, there's all these responsibilities that she really didn't want to do for someone that's openly admitted to being an introvert. And I think she's ready for it. And I think Trevor Whitman being there and, now training with Kamaru, who's obviously got way more eyeballs on anyone really right now in the sport, I think will help her out a bit. But I'm excited to see what this Thug Rose 2.0 era can be.
She's always an exciting fighter, and I think the women's strawweight division is one of the best divisions in the UFC. I mean, it's wild, it's unpredictable, and whatever happens next, I'm excited for it.
Like strawweight as a whole right now is unbelievable in MMA, not even just the UFC. Like LFA had a crazy LFA strawweight title fight like the previous night. So I mean, just these women at 115 just continue to get better and better. And I don't know who you match Rose up with next. Like, who do you, off the top of your head, do you have, Eric?
I think the plan was for the winner of
Carla Esparza. Yes. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, you got it though. I don't see Esparza winning that fight. I think it'll be sorry, what's her name? Jana, I think.
Yeah.
I think she'll probably win that fight and perhaps challenge for the title next, which would be really fun. Her against Rose Namajunas. I don't know if there's much money in Esparza versus Namajunas too, but hey, if that's the fight to make, it's the fight to make.
Yeah, I don't see much interest in it. Like Carla Esparza was the champion once before, like the original champion, I believe.
She beat Rose. Yeah, she beat Rose to win the title.
I mean, you can flash back to that, especially if you're, highlighting Tough coming back this year and whatnot. I don't know, but like, does Carla Esparza excite anyone right now? Obviously, probably it wouldn't headline anything. Definitely a co-main
or perhaps
event,
a fight night.
A fight. Yeah, I don't know. Are they really giving many title fights away right now on Fight Night? It's all pay-per-view for that right now.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps not, but that's not a pay-per-view headline.
Yeah, for sure not. Like, you're not spending your like $90 American to check this out and sign up for Fight Pass. But I don't know. I think, as you said, and the other Chinese fighter, I think as well is an interesting story. Like to get the win back and be another Chinese champion. So I don't know. I was really happy for Rose and Trevor Whitman again. Like this guy, like I said, in one night, he's quickly made himself the coach of the year. Like, move over, Sanford MMA. I just dominated a pay-per-view.
Yep, a night like this is definitely huge for Whitman. I guess perhaps Justin Gaethje will be up next.
Yeah, I think that's
hopefully.
The one. I mean, I really want to see it. I think if Chandler wins, please give me Gaethje Chandler. That's the fight I think every hardcore really wants to see. I think it was really the one fight everyone demanded to see once the UFC signed Michael Chandler from Bellator. So I really hope we get that fight at some point in this year.
My heart was Oliveira versus Poirier for the vacated championship, but Poirier decided let's go with the money. Understandably.
I understand. Yeah, exactly. Understandably, I'll take the money. The money means more than the belt, unfortunately, right now for, a lot of people. But yeah, Trevor Whitman, amazing coach of the year, amazing analyst too when they bring him on for those fight night cards. But all in all, like a big win, like just unbelievable showing for Whitman just to come in, wreck shop, have this amazing duo relationship with Kamaru Usman that they've just clicked so well, and now. Namajunas, who you've been with forever, you've seen the ups and downs, and now the highest of high, making history and being the first woman to ever regain a title in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, even aside from women, just a huge moment for Rose Namajunas.
Yeah.
And I think I'll go on record and say I think we'll see the Namajunas versus Yan Jiaonan fight next. But regardless of what direction they go in that division, it's exciting. I love it.
There's always, I would say there's Joanna, but I mean, Rose did beat her twice.
Yeah.
But she is a name, and that's kind of where it's at right now with the sport. If you're kind of a name, you're getting it. But we haven't really heard much as well from Joanna, which I find kind of interesting.
You could always run back Joanna versus Zhang Weili.
That you can definitely run back, and hopefully, if that's a co-main, it falls into the Diaz Edwards situation where it's 5 rounds. You cannot have that fight be 3 rounds.
That would be insane. No, that gets 5 rounds for sure.
That would be promotional malpractice if they do not give that one 5 rounds. But all in all, congrats to Rose. Like, she seems so overjoyed, like broke down in tears, got everyone behind her, and it was a really nice moment. And MMA doesn't have a lot of nice moments, but that was one that you're definitely going to remember and think like happy thoughts.
Yeah, we'll get to some not so nice moments later.
Yeah, we saw some not so nice moments for sure. And then the other title fight on this card was Valentina Shivchenko defending her women's flyweight title against Jessica Andrade. Andrade was easily the highest level of opponent, being a former champion at strawweight and then now going up to this weight class of 125, which is the perfect weight class for her. But Shevchenko, there's levels to this, as Corey Anderson said, and there really was levels to this because it was honestly just like playtime, just taking Shevchenko taking down Andrade at will. Anytime Andrade was able to get up, she'd go right back down. And, that first round could have been 10-8, and then the second definitely was a 10-8, and I believe the finish was in the third round.
Second round.
Second round. So, okay, yeah. So it would have been a 10-8 anyway. But nonetheless, Shevchenko proving why she's really making a run for Amanda Nunez's legacy right now, and that seems to be the fight to make once Nunez gets over this fight with Pena. I don't want to say it's over, but I mean, Pena can play spoiler and kind of ruin those plans. She still has a chance. I'm not going to doubt Juliana Pena, but the UFC has to be thinking, we're doing this for the third time, Shevchenko and Nunez.
Yeah, I think that's the direction that would excite fans the most. I recall scoring in that second fight for Shevchenko, but it was super close.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the most interesting fight. Yeah. Will it happen? I don't know. But it's tough to say what direction to go in for either of them aside from that, right?
Yeah, because who does Amanda needs to fight? Amanda and Valentina now need to fight people that can make it competitive. And it seems like, they're just lining up to face each other. It's the fight even casuals are asking for. And when the casuals start asking for it, I had a lot of people message me they have to make that fight, right? They have to make Shevchenko Nunez because a lot of people didn't know about the first couple fights, but they got to make it. And I think it means a lot more now considering Shevchenko's had her this dominant run at 125. We know about her striking, but her grappling and wrestling has evolved so much. She's willing to take on Jennifer Maia, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and really out-grapple her, and then to just manhandle Jessica Andrade like she did. It just adds levels to how talented this woman is.
Yeah, 100%. This isn't say, Frankie Edgar versus BJ Penn 3, where they put it together and you're like, yeah. Why would they possibly do this? Shevchenko and Amanda Nunez are both at a different level from everybody else, and they're both at their peak of fame right now too as well, right? So that casual interest is there for that trilogy fight.
And if Amanda were to win that, you could totally see her retiring, and that would be the perfect way to go at the sunset if she gets the win. And if Shevchenko wins, then she has a right to claim that she's maybe the greatest of all time, even though the score would be 2-1. I mean, even whatever, but relevancy, what's happening in the present is how a lot of people look at it. But all in all, that has to be the fight to make, because I don't even know who you can even say now is close to fighting and winning that belt, the women's flyweight title. Because I thought Jessica Andrade had a puncher's chance because she has a lot of power, but that was just stymied out and no hope of any offense from Andrade went on in that fight.
Yeah, going into this fight, I thought it might look a lot like Jessica Andrade versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk, where Andrade powers forward but ultimately gets countered over and over again. Shevchenko wins. But Shevchenko just had no interest in that, dominated her on the ground. I think she was 7 for 7 with takedowns, which is remarkable considering nobody does that to Jessica Andrade.
Which I believe is a record now in the UFC for women. I believe it's a women for 7 straight takedowns in championship fights or something. They put a graphic up. I just caught the tail end of it as it was leaving the screen. But it was 7 straight unanswered. It was get up, get down, get up, get down, and just kind of broke her will. And I was happy, she got the crucifix and laid those nasty elbows in. I thought Dan Miragliotta was going to let this go a little bit longer because Dan's known to just let some of this violence happen that doesn't need to happen. But thankfully, he stopped it at the right time because no one needed to see Jessica Andrade be pounded into the canvas, especially after what we saw previously, which we'll get to moments in a few seconds here.
Yeah, perfect stoppage here. And from what I remember, Jessica Andrade had no complaints. So.
No, and nor should she. Yeah. She knew her will was broken. There was no way she was going to win this fight. And and whatever. But yeah, so clearly you can see on the horizon it's Nunez versus Shivchenko 3. I mean, the trilogies, they're never really sometimes the best, but you know what? They're the perfect fight to make, especially right now for the women's scene in the UFC. Then, you know, moving on here, this is a fight a lot of people were looking forward to, a middleweight bout, Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman. I mean, it was supposed to happen earlier this year, then COVID, you know, reared its ugly head. And, you know, Weidman, he looked like a much more motivated fighter. He kind of found that vibe that led him to win the title from Anderson Silva. And then, you know, the fight starts, and just 17 seconds in, a leg kick is checked a Weidman leg kick is checked by Uriah Hall, and the leg just snaps like in half, like as happened with Anderson Silva on a leg kick that was checked by Chris Weidman. All in all, it was very graphic. It was unfortunate because this could be the end of Chris Weidman's career, especially for someone in his age bracket. And not like the way Uriah Hall wanted to win this fight, but it's a win. Yep. And more importantly, though, can we talk about Dana White tweeting out the video as like, hey, this first guy to ever win a fight without throwing a strike, and just fully looping this graphic injury over and over again. I don't know what was going on with Dana this today on social media, but someone needed to take his phone.
Wow, I missed that entirely.
Oh man, he put out this, like, the replay that they showed of the different angles of the leg breaking, and he put this quote of like, this is the first fight ever in UFC history for a fighter to win without throwing a significant strike. And I was like, that's great and all, but no one wants to see a gruesome injury like that. 2, this guy that broke his leg, also former champion for your company that you guys were behind. And 3, it's really not the classiest thing to do. It was, especially with how Twitter works, it's like too many times seeing that. Like, I don't know what was going on with Dana today on social media.
Yeah, wow, that's wild. I mean, yeah, that is an interesting stat. It just feels like perhaps a misread of the room.
It's an interesting stat, but 0 people were thinking about that stat after seeing, you know, a former champion probably have his career ended by a graphic leg break.
Just a horrific injury.
Yeah, I feel so bad for Weidman too, because he's like really seemed like he was, you know, giving it one last run, and then this happens, and hopefully he's going to be okay. They said on the broadcast, which was nice to get an update from Megan O'Leary, like he's stable and he's going to have surgery tomorrow, but yeah, just an unfortunate situation. And you know, to make it even better, I would say, was Uriah Hall's post-fight speech. Like, he just nailed it. He took his time. He thought about what he wanted to say, and, you know, just gave this passionate speech about, like, he's a great guy. I didn't want it to be this way. You're one of the best. I mean, obviously, he articulated much better than my little breakdown, but still, I just thought, for a guy that watched another man's leg snap and probably felt it as well, I just couldn't imagine being in those circumstances, and he knocked it out of the park. But I mean, you want to play 6 degrees of separation, Eric. Like, Anderson Silva breaks his leg on Chris Weidman, and then Uriah Hall beats Anderson Silva, and then Chris Weidman breaks his leg on Uriah Hall. Like, 6 degrees of separation. Wild stat. It's unfortunate that I got to pull it out, but feel bad for Weidman, and hopefully he's going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Uriah Hall was super classy in his post-fight interview. I thought he came off really well. He handled everything well. For Weidman, yeah, just like I said, like you said, like everyone said, a horrific injury, tough to watch. But I will say it's an injury we've seen a lot of people bounce back from. You know, in the NBA, for example, Paul George, Gordon Hayward, same thing happened to them, I believe, and they bounced back. In the UFC, of course, Anderson Silva has fought many times since that injury. So if Weidman does want to resume his career, hopefully that's an option for him.
I mean, he's definitely going to be out a year and a half, and he's 36 years old. Like, he can give it maybe like a comeback fight if he really wants to, but like, he's getting older. His kids are getting older. He seemed like a guy anyway that was giving it a run and then really wanted to settle down. So I don't know if this kind of accelerates those plans. But, like, if that is how he goes out, like, what an unfortunate way for one of the, you know, at one point, the top middleweight in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the UFC first came out with their rankings, their pound for pound list. Chris Weidman ascended that pretty quickly. I think at the time he was beat, he was like top 3 on the pound for pound list in the world, and it's been a sad decline. And if this was the end, it was a very anticlimactic and very saddening end. So hopefully, whatever happens next, he's healthy, and if he does resume his career, hopefully it will continue and end on a happier note.
Yeah, hopefully he can. If he comes back, it ends that way. But as we know, Eric, MMA is a cruel game, and it was definitely really cruel to Chris Weidman tonight. And hopefully, he just makes a recovery and can live a normal life. Like we saw in football, Alex Smith kind of had an injury like this, and he came back last year, won Player of the Year, and he just retired. So if he gives it if he comes back, I think it's going to be one fight max, just so he can put a stamp on it. If he wins, great. If he doesn't, whatever. I gave it a go, but I don't know. I just feel that was so cruel for a guy that is one of the nicest people in mixed martial arts as well, and a former champion and first guy to beat Anderson Silva in the UFC. So, all the best to Chris Weidman from myself and you, Eric.
Yep, 100%.
And then unfortunately we had a leg injury there. We started off the pay-per-view with a leg injury, though this one isn't as severe as we have seen this trend happen. It was a interesting, crucial fight for some of these guys. Jimmy Crute, Anthony Smith, light heavyweight fight. Smith is a guy that had a rough 2020, as much as everyone did, but he really had a rough 2020.
Yes, he did.
Like the last time he fought in that building, his teeth were being picked off the canvas of the octagon at the hands of Glover Teixeira. And then, he lost the Rakic fight, and he openly admitted he took a fight of a guy lower down in the UFC caliber than what he is just to get a win back. And, he looked great, honestly. His hands were good. His leg kicks obviously were great. And Jimmy Crute's been a prospect for a long time, was taking that step up. But Crute got caught with a leg kick that is one of those things where the nerve died. Like we saw it happen with Michael Chandler's ankle back in Bellator, and it's happened to a few other guys in MMA. But unfortunate for Crute, and he tried to give it a go to start the second round, but his leg was done. He couldn't put any weight on it. And I thought the commission in Florida was going to let this happen. There was a moment there I thought, you can go out there. But good on the Florida State Athletic Commission for stopping the fight before the second round happens. And Anthony Smith gets a pretty important win, because this he was the one that caused the leg kick and whatever. He's seems to have taken his time, healed up a little bit from the how much damage he took in 2020. And maybe he can give it a go. Another run at, fighting a Jan Blachowicz for the title, which I'd be interested to see.
Yeah, I mean, he's got back-to-back wins now after back-to-back one-sided losses in 2020. There's still a bit of a ladder for him to climb at light heavyweight right now. He's going to have to beat somebody in the top 5 if he wants that. But like you said, he looked good here. Unfortunate for Crute, but, a completely legitimate leg kick from Anthony Smith that did the damage. So great win for him, and back-to-back first-round stoppages.
Yeah, and that's great for Anthony Smith, and everything seems to be coming up for him, and he's made the adjustments, whatever. And and I think the thing was also that Crute kind of started to get his feeling back a little bit towards the post-fight portion of it, but I think the commission did the right thing, stopped it. There's no way you could let a guy go out there at that level with how heavy of strikers those guys are at 205. But whatever. You know what, Crute, this is a minor setback. I think he's still one of the best prospects at 205. And his only losses in the UFC are Peruvian necktie and his body quitting on him. That's not too shabby.
No, he remains a strong contender, a strong prospect, I should say, at light heavyweight.
So that was how the pay-per-view started. The building was packed, the energy was there, and all in all, what a main card, Eric. First of all, this is one of the best cards I think we've seen in the pandemic era, and it's because we have fans back.
Yeah, this card was amazing. I think this was the best pay-per-view in quite some time. I mean, to have 5 fights of this caliber, 3 title fights, and they all end before the third round, that's It's insane. I mean, obviously the Weidman Hall fight was a bit of a sour note because the injury was so severe there, but
Yeah.
at the very least, the rest of the card just fantastic and some huge moments too.
And this card as a whole, I thought really brought the goods, like from the prelims on. And, we'll touch on some of these prelims right here. Randy Brown, I mean, this guy looked fantastic as well. Probably his best win in the UFC against Cowboy Oliveira. And I don't know, there was some sort of animosity between between Cowboy Oliveira and Randy Brown. I don't know what it was. Joe Rogan tried to.
There's always weird shit going on in every Alex Oliveira fight. You just have to roll with it.
Joe Rogan tried to get to the bottom of it, but all it did was resort everyone having to go to check out Randy Brown on Twitch.
I forgot about that. Oh,
Joe Rogan tried not once, but twice to get to the bottom of this. He asked Randy, what was the animosity? Find me on Twitch. I'll explain it. Okay. Asked him a question about the fight. Third question was, what was the animosity about that fight? And then Randy once again was like, go to my Twitch. Okay. So yeah. Commentary also tonight was maybe not like, it was a big night. Anik was amazing as always. Rogan had a moment like that where he, kept trying to pry for it. I thought this may have been the worst night for Cormier I've heard in a long time. Like, I know you're not the biggest Cormier commentator guy, but man, Cormier during the Chris Weidman walkout with the line of the year of Chris Weidman's walkouts, Tom Petty, won't back down. Cormier goes, this song reminds me of Chris Weidman, as Chris Weidman is walking out to the song. So I don't know what the thinking of this stat was at all.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to say that these things are like, it's an iconic walkout that he associates. He did the same thing with Jose Aldo a couple years ago, where Jose Aldo came out to run this down. He's like, when I hear this song, you think of Jose Aldo as Aldo makes his way into the cage.
Like, even some of his fight stats, for a guy that fought at a high level, like, I know he tries to dumb it down, but he dumbs himself down. I don't know why. He said, I forget what he said. He said something else that I just shook my head at, but that one was a doozy. Like, this song reminds me of Chris Weidman. Like, this podcast reminds me of Eric Marcotte.
Oh, I'm touched.
Like, unbelievable. But I don't know. Maybe it was just the energy got, like, in their head a bit. I don't know. But man, Cormier also had other things. He had to worry about trying to fight Jake Paul.
Yeah, a very strange night. I didn't even notice him that much on commentary tonight, to be honest. Normally, I pay more attention to the commentary, but they just sort of fade into the background for me, which is good. Which is good for your commentary to do.
Also, because this is the first event with fans, we got to check a look at like the celebrities there. I was shocked they put Jake Paul on camera. Shocked.
Yeah, I didn't see it coming either.
Yeah, like I literally thought, especially after Dana's interview, like with the media this week, and then the Bill Simmons podcast, where he's pretty much trashing Jake Paul and Triller, to be like, yeah, you know what, we got to just throw him on there because he's popular right now. It's kind of weird.
Well, I mean, throughout the night, at certain points, you would just hear the audience start to take over with, excuse my language, but fuck Jake Paul, and it would just like radiate throughout the fights, and you would hear the commentators go silent, like, what are they trying to say? And it would just be this awkward silence while they didn't acknowledge what the chants were, but they were the only thing you could hear during the fights. The
worst moment of those chants was after Chris Weidman broke his leg. And like everyone's in a gasp at what happened, and you know John Anik's trying to put this somehow in a bow, even though it's a horrible injury. We hear F Jake Paul, like what? Like
I wonder if he did something in the crowd that made people do that at that specific moment. Like I can't imagine.
He may have. Like obviously we didn't have a camera on him. We don't know, but I know maybe the crowd was trying to get themselves back into the mood they were in before the injury, but not the time. Not the time to chant F Jake Paul during one of the former champions just crushing his leg and maybe ending his career. I don't know. Just crowd was hot, but not very smart moments tonight. But yeah,
there's certainly some uncomfortable moments. But hey, right after they panned to Jake Paul in the crowd, they panned to one Nick Diaz, who got a big ovation from the crowd.
Nick Diaz did get a big ovation. earlier in the night, Herb Dean got a bigger ovation than anyone on the undercard. So Herb is over.
Crazy over.
Super over. Herb had a Road Warrior pop on the prelims. But yeah, back to Randy Brown, Cowboy Oliveira. Like, Randy Brown landed this perfect right hand that I don't know how it didn't finish Cowboy Oliveira, but it didn't matter because Randy Brown had a one-arm rear naked choke. Like, didn't grab the other arm, just literally one arm around the neck, choking out like you would a bully would in like public school. Like, that's how nasty it was. And I'm really impressed at the development of touch and go. So make sure you follow him on Twitch as well.
Yeah, this was an unreal submission. He definitely deserved a performance bonus. He didn't get one, unfortunately, but this submission was awesome, man.
Who were the performance bonuses? Sorry, I didn't get the chance to see them.
The performance bonus to Rose Namajunas and Kamaru Usman.
Okay.
And fight of the night went out to, I have it here, Jeff Molina and, oh my God, I forget how to say this guy's name, but his opponents, which was an awesome fight.
Yeah, it was like the Aori Quilang fighter.
Yes.
That was a great fight, which we'll get to in a moment. But I mean, good win for Randy Brown in a guy that's really up and coming at that weight class of 170 pounds. But yeah, I'm impressed with Brown. And another, Jamaican that had a big night on the card. Unfortunately, like Uriah Hall, he didn't want to have his win that way. But, guys from Spanish Town, Jamaica, going 2-0 on the night. So shout out to them and that wave of the wave of Jamaican mixed martial artists, Eric. It's starting to take over the sport. Yeah.
A big bounce back win for Randy Brown because they really fed him to Vicente Luque, which was just that was, I remember going into the fight, just that is insane matchmaking. Like, that's going to be a slaughter, and it was. So this was a good step back for him.
It definitely was, and I'm happy to see him also be smart with his post-fight where, as I said, Rogan was trying to pry out that information about the beef, and he was plugging his Twitch. So that was very smart.
It was his bjpen.com woo moment.
Oh, yeah. Only not as insane as that. At least Randy Brown put it on. Then we had an interesting welterweight fight, Dwight Grant versus Stefan Sekulik. I don't know. This was the one fight on the night where scorecards through social media were all over the place. It was like it could be 30-27 Sekulik, it could be 30-27 for Grant, or 29-28, or even maybe in some cases a draw. But I don't know. How did you see this fight happening, Eric? Because commentary was hard on Grant. Like, they were like, this guy's fighting, he's blowing it, basically, is what they were saying.
I recall when I watched it, I was like, yeah, I saw Sekulik winning. I had him up. I had him 29-28 to win the fight. And I was surprised by the decision. I didn't think Dwight Grant did enough. But just like yourself, I went onto Twitter and saw so many scorecards just all over the place. I realized, okay, it's just one of those fights.
Yeah, it definitely was. I don't know. I mean, Sekulik almost finished the fight, too, like in the third round with a guillotine choke, which I don't know how you don't give Sekulik the fight, especially after that. I think, judging criteria is based on damage, and that was the most effective damaging moment, really, in the fight. But whatever. The judging was interesting tonight. Florida be Florida.
Well, I guess all the judges gave him the third round, but perhaps two of them already had Dwight Grant up 2-0.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I think because a lot of people I saw did have Grant up 2-0 going into the third. So I didn't. I had it 19-19 heading into the third, but you know what? I'm not a judge, so really, all in all, my opinion doesn't mean a whole lot more. But whose opinion does mean a lot is Brendan Allen's, who, went out there and had his best showing in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, going into this fight, I think a lot of us assumed his road to victory would be grappling, but he looked good on the feet even before it went there. And then Roberson had this lapse in judgment where he decided to roll for a leg lock and got heel hooked himself. And there you have it.
Heel hooked and tapped out with 5 seconds left in the first round. So that just tells you about how good the ground game of Brendan Allen is at middleweight. Look, I've always been high on Brendan Allen from his run in LFA. Winning in the Contender Series. Like, this is a guy that really can put the tools together. He's had some roadblocks in there, which I think can help as well developed. Like, you only can learn from your losses. And I think Brendan Allen, in a year, maybe 2-3 years, I should say, he could be fighting for a middleweight title. I think he's still got youth on his side. He's got really heavy hands, and now is developing some sick submissions, like a heel hook on Carl Roberson.
Yeah, he's certainly someone to keep your eyes out for at middleweight right now, which is a pretty interesting division at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, we just found out, and they announced on the card that UFC 263 Israel Adesanya is defending against Marvin Vettori, which, I mean, Dana White did break that on the Bill Simmons podcast, that's the fight that they're going to make. Obviously, timing works out better for Vettori Adesanya. Adesanya wants to fight in June, and, Robert Whittaker, who probably deserves the fight, especially after last weekend, but he's got to do, all that insane quarantining that you've got to do out in New Zealand. So, if anything, we know Whittaker is next, so he gets the winner of either it's going to be Izzy and Vettori. So I know that's our main event for UFC 263 come June the 12th, as well, headlined with the flyweight title rematch with Davison Figueiredo and oh my God, I'm blanking on the name right there.
Yeah, Brandon Moreno.
Brandon Moreno, yeah. I was like, Brandon something. I was going to say Brandon Allen, but that'd be too many. That'd be a big cut for Brandon Allen.
Yeah.
That'd be a big cut. So that's our June pay-per-view. Moving on here, this was the opening fight on the televised portion of the prelims. A fight I honestly thought, Eric, was going to be a banger. Thought it probably could have been fight of the night. And it just, styles make fights, and it just didn't really work out that way. It was Pat Sabatini making his UFC debut against lovely Canadian Tristan Conley. Tristan Conley, of course, coming off the amazing welterweight, last-minute replacement where he won all the bonuses from Michel Pereira back in 2019 in Vancouver as well. But honestly, it was the first time in a long time that Conley had to make that cut to 145, and it kind of showed. He was a little sluggish, couldn't really get the start he wanted. He won the third round. I had it 29-28 for Pat Sabatini, but Pat Sabatini is a name. I'm just going to say, keep your eye out for him. One of the best prospects to come out of CFFC, a promotion based out of Philadelphia, like Paul Felder's coming out of there. Aljamain Sterling's come out of there. So some quality fighters, and this guy that had a severe broken arm, which they talked about on the broadcast, shouldn't even be fighting at this level, let alone, coming back in MMA. And, he's had a couple big knockouts back in CFFC, and now, here in the UFC. It wasn't maybe the fight he wanted, but it's better to actually go out there and have a fight that maybe a boring than fight a guy that you were supposed to fight that missed weight by 2 weight classes.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sabatini looked great throughout the first 2 rounds, perhaps especially to it wasn't the most interesting fight on the card, but he dropped Connolly early, as I recall, and he really controlled him in the grappling department for 2 rounds at the very least. He faltered in the 3rd round. I did give that to Connolly. I thought he did a bit better work, but I thought this was a solid debut nonetheless.
Hey, a win's a win, right? And it was a fight that got the most boos because of how dare they go to the ground.
How dare they?
The nerve of Pat Sabatini and Tristan Conley. And this was our first real let's boo the international fighter. Booing the Canadians. I just can't believe it. Us proud Canucks. But all in all, a good win for Sabatini. I think Sabatini is a name I said to keep an eye on. And you know what? For Tristan Conley, this is his natural weight class. The first time really fighting at 145. Let me just take a look quickly. Since he did it in that was lightweight. He won the lightweight title for Rise. Then he fought at a catchweight. So I mean, he's fought at lightweight. Now he's here at featherweight. So you could see maybe the cut did affect him a little bit, but I think Conley will be okay in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't go his way, but he held on and got that round late on a couple of the scorecards. So hey, it could have been worse.
And then we went down. We closed off the Fight Pass portion of the prelims with a quick fight. We only went 50 seconds. Danae Batgarel, finishing Kevin Natividad. And this was kind of an upset to me. Natividad's been a guy that you really thought was going to, just cause wreck shop in his couple first UFC fights. And it's been the opposite. Now Natividad falls to 0-2. But, these Mongolian fighters, who knew Mongolia had so much talent in that little region. And Bat Grell, he's got a heavy left counter. That was just floored Natividad.
Yeah, I mean, he picked up that big knockout in his last fight, and then on an even bigger stage, he pretty much did the exact same thing here. Beautiful counter left hook, I believe it was, that he used to down him, and tremendous performance for him.
Yeah, I mean, that left hook is becoming his solid finishing maneuver. I know we don't really have that in MMA, but it's you go 2 for 2 in your last 2 fights with that left hook, getting it done. And training at Jackson's, I mean, it's probably the gold standard of any gym in MMA. So and it's just nice to see some of these international guys, like from Mongolia and that part of the world, really make a big statement. Rodrigo Vargas versus Rong Zhu. Rong Zhu, the youngest fighter now on the UFC roster, born in the year 2000, and I felt so old hearing that. I don't know about you,
no
Eric,
comment,
but I felt ancient considering Zhu was born in the year 2000. I was about to have my 10th birthday, so I felt ancient. But Zhu was a guy that was a little too cocky. Maybe was feeling it a little too much. And this is the fight where the scorecards by the judging was a little interesting because it was a competitive fight. And I thought, Rodrigo Vargas fought well and did enough to win the fight. But when we looked at the scorecards, it was either going to mostly be 29-28. And then Florida and their judging just came out of nowhere where Troy Win Kapow gave the fight to Vargas 30-26. I don't know what world you can give that fight 30-26. I'm for giving the 10-8 rounds, but no way in hell did that fight have a 10-8 round.
No, that scorecard was completely insane. Like, there's no logical way where you can find a 10-8 round. You would probably even have trouble giving Vargas that final round, although it was close enough, but a 10-8 in there was crazy. I mean, thankfully it didn't affect the outcome of the fight. I thought the right guy got his hand raised in the end. But puzzling, man, puzzling.
But even the round that he gave the 10-8 to was the first round where it was like the second round. Okay, there was a long guillotine choke in there that could have put Rong Zhu away from Vargas, but credit to Rong Zhu, he got his head out. But okay, that one I can see a 10-8 round. The first round was one-way traffic, but it wasn't enough damage. There was damage is the name of the game with scoring. And there was not enough for it to be a 10-8 round, but I don't know if
close.
I don't know if the smoke of marijuana from the Triller show from last weekend has made it over from Georgia to Florida, but Troy Win Kapow was on something with that scorecard. That is one of the worst scorecards I have ever seen. But as you said, at least Vargas won the fight. This could have been fighting words for someone from Vargas if he didn't win this fight.
It doesn't top 48-47 Felder against RDA. That's still the pinnacle, but it's close.
48-47 Felder. Yeah, even Paul himself was like, no. He fall. No, that was definitely the worst. But yeah, well, thankfully we didn't need to hear much from Troy Win Kapow the rest of the night. Also, amazing name. But Chris Lee did rear his head kind of, but once again, at least the judging didn't affect the fights that went to the scorecard with the wrong fighter winning the fight or what have you. Moving on, we had Jeff Molina versus Aori Quilang. This fight was awesome. This was rightfully so. And I'm happy. You know what? I'm happy that this won a performance bonus, as you just said on the show. Two guys really making early impressions in their UFC career can really use the money, first of all.
Yes.
And they went out there and they tore it up. There were moments in the second round where it was the Chinese fighter Aori Quilang, who was kind of having his way with the fight, and then Molina rocked him to end the second round, and then the roles reversed in the third round where it was Molina having his way, and if there was an extra 10 seconds, Molina may have been finished because he got rocked as the horn was sounding.
This fight was so wild. Yeah, exactly. If there was any time left in that second round, Molina probably picks up the stoppage win and vice versa in the third round. So this fight was wild. They got a well-deserved ovation from the crowd and well-deserved fight of the night honors.
Definitely. And you know what? Like I said, I was happy that the bonus went to guys that really earn it. And flyweight, Eric, it's becoming a super fun division, like how the cruiserweight division used to be on Nitro. Like, you put some of these guys out there, they're going to have these kind of scraps where they're going to go back and forth. Some of these 25ers have, like hammers in their fists. And I was happy to see Molina go out there and get the win. But his opponent, though, in Aori Quilang, I want to see more of him.
Oh, yeah. I want to see more about these guys. And flyweight has been so exciting these last 2 or 3 years. I mean, almost every fight that they put together delivers. And now that you don't have a champion like Demetrius Johnson, who just feels so far ahead of everyone in the world, it feels like a very open division. And yeah, Figueiredo is dominant, but he's also super exciting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Especially coming off a near fight of the year against Brandon Moreno to close out 2020. And as we said earlier, they'll do that again in June. But I loved this fight. It was awesome. And it just, the night really, the tone started off with a women's strawweight match between Ariana Carnelosi versus Liang Na. And as I said, the first punch with a crowd back is a knockdown from Khorassani getting dropped by Liang Na. And we were off to the races for a fun night. That really set the tone. And you get those sometimes where the first fight in the prelims, the first couple prelims really set the tone for the night. And this is the fight that did it. Khorassani got dropped, and I thought she was in trouble, had her back taken. I thought, she's going to get choked out. And then Liang Na got in trouble. She kind of gassed a bit. Khorassani was able to, get into Carnelosi, was able to get in some good positions. I thought she nearly had a triangle choke at one point, didn't get it. And then she lands in the second round, she lands these hammer fists. And you don't think much of them, but the ref stops the fight. And at first, a lot of people were like, that's an early stoppage. But just the damage that Liang Na suffered, she was hurt and in a lot of trouble. And sometimes it may be early, but I thought that was a great stoppage because a lot of refs may have not been paying attention and seeing what would have happened there. And the fight was stopped, and I have no issues with it at all.
I was in the camp that actually thought this should have been stopped beforehand because at the end of the first round, Liang couldn't get up. She could not pick herself up. Her cornerman had to come over, drag her off the ground, pick her up, and put her on her stool, which I don't think is legal. I'm pretty sure that should have been a first round TKO finish, but regardless, the result happened a minute later because she was done.
Yeah, we had a situation like that kind of in KSW today where one of the fighters almost finished a fight and then gassed himself out. Literally the second round started, he just stayed in his side and literally let his opponent walk across and just finish him. So that was interesting. But,
oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, you know what? You make a good point. This could have been finished. And I believe the rule is you have to physically yourself get up and make it back to your corner before the start of the second round. But Song Yadong, who's not even really supposed to be in the camp, but because he can speak, whatever Chinese that they speak, was able to be the cornerman. But heads up play on Song Yadong for picking her up and putting her back in the corner. But as you said, the result really didn't change. But and then at the post fight, Ariane Carnelosi said, "Hey Dana, can I stick around and watch the fights?" Which I thought was an interesting comment, but. Yeah, I think Carnelosi, I think you can stay once you get your medicals. I think you can hang out and watch the fight, but it may cost you.
And that was the card.
And that was UFC 261, our first event with fans, Eric. And I think these pay-per-views now, that obviously the mindsets of the UFC seems to be pay-per-views are going to have fans. Fight nights, we know right now are still going to be at the Apex. So next Saturday with the Uriah Prochazka card. It's going to be a bit of a letdown now back in this bubble environment.
I don't know. I like the bubble. I like the Apex. I like the no crowds too. I think I can go back and forth. Wow. Do the fight nights at the Apex and then have your big ones in front of a crowd. I'm cool with it.
There were some aspects of the bubble that I desperately missed from the from the ceremonial weigh-ins to tonight with the booing of internationals or just fans just screaming game bread into a microphone loudly. I don't need to hear that. I did not miss that from the bubble environment. But yeah, we're going to have now these pay-per-views with fans. So I think that's going to also be another selling point right now, because some of these leagues are slowly rolling back fans. Like, Major League Baseball has fans back in some areas. The NHL is hit or miss with fans. Same with the NBA. But and the NFL is still, months away from actually having their season. But I think that's a selling point right now for the UFC. Like, you see these great cards, you see our great athletes, and the fans are going to help add an extra dynamic to it. Because I think the fans for this card were a bit of a selling point.
I agree. I think the fans, as well as, of course, the star power of the likes of Jorge Masvidal or Zhang Weili, who's a big star in her own right. I think this pay-per-view is going to do some massive numbers.
Yeah, I really expect it to do massive numbers as well. Honestly, easy candidate right now for show of the year. I don't think anything's really going to top it just on the fan aspect alone. Like, the fights were amazing and there were some real historical fights, but I think the fans really just put the icing on the cake that was UFC 261, Eric.
Yeah, this is going to be a hard card to beat for event of the year when all is said and done.
Yeah, well, you know what, Eric? We got plenty more events to come. As I said, we're just about to hit May. So we're still almost at the halfway point of 2021, but I know, Eric, you're going to be, recapping every single UFC event by print at Post Wrestling. And where can people, at Post Wrestling find your work and find yourself out there on social media to get your hot tweets as these UFC events and all mixed martial art events happen?
So yeah, you can catch all my work at postwrestling.com. And if you want to talk to me about MMA or hear what I have to say, typically about UFC cards, on Twitter, I'm at Eric Marcotte 705. And there's also a Discord for Post Wrestling that you can access from the site. It's an open Discord, and we have a very active MMA section in there as well. So come chat about the sport with us.
Definitely. Always make sure you talk MMA on the Discord. Talk to MMA with Eric on social media. You can always find me at jhagholm1 on Twitter or on Instagram at jhagholm. Eric, thanks for kind of pinch hitting, coming on in and while hitting a grand slam. You can touch them all now, as we hit a home run for what was a home run event for the UFC.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Hell, I might rewatch the entire main card before I go to bed. If I only watch the fights, it'll take like 19 minutes.
Well, Eric, then I will tell you will not be getting any sleep tonight, because you'll be as jacked up as probably the first viewing. And, you got to get some sleep at some point.
I'm working nights anyways. I'm fine.
Well, there you go. You know what? No sleep for you, more UFC, more mixed martial arts. But, yeah, Eric, once again, thanks for hanging out. And hopefully we'll get you back on for one of these recaps, because there's a lot of great cards coming up for at this summer run for the UFC, for what we know now for May, with the lightweight title, and then Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier 3 in July. So and with fans as well. So that's going to always be interesting. But Eric, thanks for your time, and check out his work at postwrestling.com. That's it for us. Peace out. Have a good rest of your now early Sunday morning on the East Coast.